But ultimately, we went from our formal formation to private equity exit in 3.5 years. We don't all just want to be out there billing. We need to be constantly selling, and we're better off billing less, selling more. The boat is small, so it's not necessarily equipped to handle the bigger wave. We were not looking for buyers, but a happy mistake is we invested in marketing, and then all of a sudden people start paying attention.
Hey there, and welcome back to Nex-Chapter, recorded right here in the Republic studio. Think about it as the Republic for founders and entrepreneurs, where we share wisdom, have fun, and celebrate the journey of another entrepreneur. I am Raman Sehgal, and I am the author of the Floundering Founder book, and I'm also the Toronto chapter lead for PEF, Post-Exit Founders, here in Toronto. And I'm also, of course, the host of the show, and this is the show for founders and entrepreneurs that are scaling or that have sold recently and are trying to figure out what to do next. And every episode covers the 3 T's: the trajectory, which are the kind of killer plays and moves that helped create a business with value or built value in that business; the transaction itself, so how the deal went down and what the entrepreneur learned from that process; and the transition, so the reality after exit and what is working now. Think about it as unfiltered wisdom from post-exit founders. And my guest today is a fantastic one, Jamie Portnoff. And Jamie is a high growth executive and entrepreneur who co-founded and served as the CEO at Truliant Consulting. And in just 3.5 years, she scaled the firm alongside her co-founders into a premier global pharmaceutical advisory business, culminating in a successful private equity exit via an acquisition. Currently, Jamie is a member of the senior leadership team at ELIQUENT, where she leads the global consulting practice she built, while also contributing to enterprise growth strategies. And with over 2 decades of technical authority, Jamie is a highly skilled entrepreneur navigating international complexity, M&A integrations, and business transformation. Known for building high-performing teams, she excels at driving success through strategic partnerships and operational transparency. Jamie lives in Baltimore with her husband and daughter. She is an awesome guest, and this is another one that kind of crosses the streams a little bit because she's from the sector where I've built my own businesses in the kind of pharmaceutical services space, and she's built a very successful business, obviously, that she ended up selling, and we get into that today. But honestly, what a great story. Phenomenal growth and exit in such a short space of time. This is a not to be missed episode. If you like the episode today, or indeed any of our episodes, then please leave us a kind rating, a comment, or share it with another founder and entrepreneur that you think would enjoy this type of thing. Enjoy today's show. Hey, Jamie, welcome to Next-Chapter. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
So, well, I'm excited because you're from the industry that I know particularly well, but many of our audience probably have no idea what we're going to be talking about. We'll try and make it nice and straightforward. And we have a ritual here at Next-Chapter and within the Republic studio to have a cheers with the guest. So what do you bring a nice drink? It's morning, so I'm guessing you've got something nice.
Yes, it's caffeinated, non-alcoholic.
And are you specific about your coffee, or you're like, whatever?
I'm very particular. It's you could say it's an Americano. It's basically a double espresso with just a bit of water and heavy cream, and it's basically jet fuel. And it's every morning I have 2 to 3 of these. So
there is nothing more American than heavy cream, let me just say. Like, it really confuses British people when they come to North America and we're like, why put heavy cream?
Yes,
but there you go. There you go. Well, I've got my gut friendly hip hop here, which is like very delicious to start my day. I've had my coffee. I don't want to get too excited. It's my wife's birthday today, so I'm hoping to have an alcoholic drink at some point
That sounds good.
today. All right, let's start. And look, the best place to maybe start is, before we kind of get into the detail of the business that you built, maybe just give us a sense of what the business was, what you built. Obviously, you did stuff before you built your consulting business, but I think for our audience, I think it's really helpful just to kind of give a very kind of in a nutshell version of, hey, this is what we did, just to give us some context.
Sure, sure. So the business that we built, Truliant Consulting, is a very specialized niche management consulting kind of company. I say niche, you mentioned life sciences. There's a field within life sciences called pharmacovigilance. It's monitoring the safety of medicines. So we built this company to address what we saw as a slice of the market that others weren't addressing well, right? Because we were not a software company, we're not a big CRO. And we saw a need for highly skilled, objective, problem solving kind of consulting that could fill in the gaps and the cracks and help our clients mature in the way they're working in this niche space in pharma.
And did you recognize this as an area to build your company because of what you had experienced in previous employment?
Yes, yeah. The company we all worked for before was doing this kind of work, but it was baked into larger technology related work. So we were a small piece of that business, but one of the biggest differentiators. And over time, that became less important to that company. But we saw that it was still important to our clients and to the industry. So we thought, oh, we can fill that little gap right there and do it better than anyone else. So we
And
did.
it's important to state, that you mentioned CRO,
Yeah,
whether it could be contract research organization, clinical research organization, and for our audience in the pharmaceutical industry, these can be very, very large organizations. Some of the ones that the IQVIA that you worked for is, I think, is one of the, I think, if not the largest in the
exactly.
world. And so they have so much capability that supports drug development and new medicines being developed by biotech and pharma, and lots of little niches within that. But if I understand correctly, you saw something where you were like, oh, they're putting less emphasis on this
Yeah,
bit, and
yeah,
we think this could be an interesting growth area.
yeah.
Okay, so talk to
That's
us then
exactly
about.
it.
Thank you. Okay, so give us a sense of, so you start this consulting company. What we're interested in understanding is, like, on the trajectory of the business was, and you did not run this business for like this was a pretty short cycle, right? For your business, in terms of, like, it wasn't like 20 years you were
Very
running this business for.
short. Yeah, very short. So basically, there was a bit of like pre-formation time where there was some, you could call it market validation, um, but ultimately we went from our formal formation to private
Yeah.
equity exit in 3.5 years, and so in that time, a small business can double year on year. You can actually go fourfold year on year, because when you're small, you can just move so fast. So without oversharing or getting into weedy details, we did exactly that. It was foot on the accelerator hard, 6 co-founders from day one. And so we experienced really rapid growth, but with a very, very strong foundation. And I think one thing that maybe differentiates us and was a key enabler of our success, among a lot of other things, is we invested in that foundational stuff, right? We were not a disorganized mess at the end. We were tight.
And what kind of stuff would you, again, like, I mean, I suppose before we go in, I mean, that's phenomenal. 3.5. I mean, I can't, let's say I've done 25 to 30 of these episodes, in addition to, speaking to so many other founders and entrepreneurs over the years. That is, I mean, you often see that in, like, SaaS businesses rather than consulting business. So, like, I'm sure our audience is like, oh my God, what did they do?
Well, I get asked that all the time. How did you do it? I'm like, I can't just say, like, this is the checklist, right? There were so many things that we got just right.
Okay, and I want to dig into those. So, like,
Sure.
before we do that, you said six co-founders. Did you all come from this kind of big contract research organization background where you collectively recognized this niche, and presumably you all brought your networks and reputation, because I imagine that must have
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
powerful.
that's a big part. Yeah, nobody can just decide they want to go into the field of pharmacovigilance and build a management consulting company
No, not
and be
super niche.
successful. That doesn't happen. So yes, all six of us had worked together in the previous company, and that company you mentioned IQVIA, but before that we worked for a company called Foresight Group, which was
Okay.
acquired by IQVIA.
Okay.
And one of my other co-founders, Lacey, and I go back even 20 plus years before that. We had our first industry jobs together. So all of us had worked together from anywhere from 7 to 20 years
Okay.
together. So we were a very tight knit group. So that, to answer that first question, yes, we had a long history together. We had our reputations, our names in industry, were known and recognized as being, go-to people for complicated problem solving in the space.
And was that, I mean, I was going to ask you about, and we're going to kind of move on to, what those killer players were, right? What were those things that, obviously we've touched on network and reputation, but obviously, I know this, but, there are lots of companies that offer pharmacovigilance or PV out there in the
Mhm.
market.
Yeah.
So what was it, you mentioned complexity there. Was it like you were solving something specific or that was on
Yeah.
trend, or yeah, again, and that might lead us nicely into
Yeah.
talking about like
Yeah.
what made you successful.
We actually, so when we first announced ourselves to the world, we didn't do a formal press release, but we did put something out there. I guess if one were to dig hard enough and they could find it on LinkedIn. I still have a copy, but I've gone back and looked at it a few times. Like, who are we? Why are we doing this? What are the what? Why? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Why this? Why now? And it basically articulated that leaders in the pharmacovigilance space, industry leaders, are faced with no shortage of challenges, right? And at the time we were still kind of in COVID land.
Okay.
So just from an organizational perspective, there were challenges associated with teams all of a sudden having to work remotely. But we talked about things like, there's transformation coming in terms of the technology, right? AI wasn't really in the vernacular, but we knew that a lot of companies were going to have to make big decisions about their enabling technology. And those decisions you can't take lightly. Those are big, multi-million dollar decisions that have a profound impact on your team today, the way you work today, and for the next years. So we knew we had a unique perspective from what we'd been doing to be able to guide those leaders on that decision making process. That was one area. We knew that the industry complexity was increasing. It used to be there's a few major markets. You kind of just need to know what you're doing: U.S., Europe, and people have started paying attention to Japan. Now it's just a much more complex, geopolitically. So we highlighted all these things and said, we're the people that can help you navigate this ambiguity, this uncertainty, volatility. It's only become more volatile since
Yeah, I
then
was going
in
to
the
say,
world,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. But we knew that we brought like a blend of, this deep technology understanding and ability to even define what is the problem you're trying to solve, right? Sometimes our clients would say, I'm feeling pain, so to speak. I don't even know what the source is. Help me figure it out, and then help me figure out what to do about it. So we were this, just because you know technology doesn't mean you can do that. Just because you're a large IQVIA type organization doesn't mean you can do that. We had all of the ingredients to help navigate those kinds of situations.
yeah. Okay, so solving complexity, like the tech piece, and almost being a guide, and in addition to your kind of reputation and network, like, so some of these is kind of what I class as like real key value drivers. What was there anything else that, I mean, I suppose just coming back to how quickly you grew, like, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you said, like, there isn't a checklist, but if I reflect back on my own journey, there were certain things that we, like, really key decisions, and like the ones I always, I hired a CEO that allowed me to do other stuff. When we set up in Boston in the US, like that
Yeah.
kind of unlocked. There was certain things that really, as you reflect back, and it's not that long ago for you as well. Like, was there anything else that you were like, actually looking back, when we did X, it led
Yeah.
to Y.
Yeah, I think one of the most important decisions and recalibrations was making sure we're focused on, because you know how consulting is, right? You don't get multi-year contracts to do management consulting there, and there's all of these graphics like the feast and famine
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
When we
Project
saw
based. Yeah, yeah.
exactly when we saw that that was a we were about to be victim of that, right? Which when you're really small you can recover quickly, but you can also fall off a cliff real quickly.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that, doubling down on the notion of we don't all just want to be out there billing. We need to be constantly selling, and we're better off billing less,
Selling more.
selling more. That was, I mean, that's a no-brainer, and people talk about it all the time, but putting it into practice when you're also trying to build the foundations for something that's going to be bigger and bigger, and you're thinking about, oh, we should hire some employees, like that sounds fun.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting. That's so you were. I mean, it's in. What I find interesting about that comment is like it took me a long time to work that out. Now I appreciate you guys were very experienced, but this sense of there is always an attraction to be when you're client facing and you're winning the work to then deliver the work. But what you guys saw was the opportunity that you have us six ambassadors and well respected individuals out there flying the flag for the business. We're gonna sell more. And did you unlock the choppy revenue in the sense that like were you able to build something where you had a more longer term retainer based revenue, or was it all quite up and down and it was just volume of projects that
It
allowed you to
was,
have
yeah, it was a lot of up and down because it was rare to have a project that would go for more than 6 months
yeah,
at a
okay,
time, period. So, but when we added the volume and more and started to rely on external people to help us deliver and provide that stability, that you could call it more passive revenue coming in, that enabled us to focus on building the actual thing that
yeah,
we
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
build. But it's when you've been consulting and you're so used to client first, it's very easy to forget to manage your business.
Yeah, yeah. How did you split the roles then? Because I mean, it's interesting you should say that because in my mind, when you said there was six founders, my mind immediately went to okay, you had a couple of guys out there selling, you had like the more upsy guy, people, you had a finance person. Did you? And again, like it's probably more for people that viewing or listening to podcasts where they're part of a founding team. I always think like some of the most successful ones are very clear and like who's responsible for what. Well, how did you guys think about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So, some of it sort of evolved organically. I was the one who said, "Hey, let's do this thing together. Hey, let's do this thing together." So even though I wasn't asked to be CEO until we were a few years into it, I was already sort of doing those types of things. But we were very good about decision making, where we made a lot of decisions together, which you really have to keep that alignment of the co-founding team. We had one of the co-founders, Sarab, you know, when it comes to technology, can mop the floor with me, right? So I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
never,
yeah,
like in a million years, I would never think that like he wouldn't have a more of a focus there, and Ishan as well. Um, Lacey, Emma, Rosa, brilliant management consultants. So yeah, it's sort of organically. Some folks were more in the on the delivery side, and then some gravitated more towards certain internal roles. Rosa being the COO ultimately, she was just naturally and still is very inclined toward numbers, structure, rigidity, which allowed me to go be me out there in the market and not have to worry about those things because no one person can do it all. And I don't think we ever struggled with that or thought that one person should do it all. But what made the six of us so unique is when you put the six of us together, you had something that was so much more powerful that you can't normally get with 6, 10, or even 15 people. We were
Mm,
perfect complements to each other. And that's really hard to reproduce.
I love that. And did you know that going into it when you guys decided to do this together? You strike me as being a very smart, thoughtful team. So like, you know, you didn't just stumble across this. You
No,
kind of
no,
figured, okay,
it was very thoughtful, right? Because if we're all just clones of each other, we would have probably been butting heads arguing, but instead we each bring our perspective, and you realize, oh wow, like I feel better knowing now that I'm getting your input. I feel better. Like maybe sometimes I would have to make the decision, but it's like, oh, good. I'm making it with like good input from you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so smart, so smart. But I suppose it's, you know, if I've reflect back on some of the episodes that we've had, they're often like, say, you know, it's their younger founders that have, you know, not done, have only had like maybe worked for a tech company for 5 years or something like that. You guys had this foundation of experience, expertise, and, you know, you're probably more grown up in reality that you were a bit further.
A little bit.
You seem like
in some ways, yeah.
And I'm sure you made mistakes as well. So I want to get on to, before I kind of move towards transaction and how that kind of came about. Okay, you grew so quickly in 4 years. And in my mind, I've kind of, you know, you've got a brilliant, diverse and best-in-class management team, reputation, the network you brought, you were solving complex problems. So I'm interested in, like, did you drive at a certain client type? For example, was it big pharma companies, or was it like smaller biotech companies, or something in between?
That's a great question.
Yeah. And I suppose leading on to that as well, was there anything else that really like lit the torch, right? That really, you know, for example, you know, maybe year 1 and 2 were like, yeah, like we did well, but then something happened and you were like, whoa, something, like in my experience, it could just be all the time. Yeah.
It's like every 1 to 3 months in that earliest stage, like massive, I don't want to say pivots, inflection points, but when you're small, and my advisor used this analogy, it's like the boat is small, so it's not necessarily equipped to handle the bigger waves. So you're building a bigger boat to handle the bigger waves. It's a great any one thing can very quickly, going back to feast or famine, send you for a spin or just launch you forward. And it's that's part of the excitement, right?
That's the fun, isn't it? I mean, it's funny saying that. I'm reflecting back on my own journey. It's like, you know, when you win a giant client, you're like, how the hell are we going to staff this thing?
Yeah, we had those moments. Like we had all of it. So I could probably give examples of some of those things that happen. But I want to make sure I go back to the start.
The clients.
So when we started, you know, because we had relationships, we could just kind of get ourselves stuck in at companies we knew. And I would say that was a mix of mid-size and larger companies where we had relationships. And that was all fine, well, and good. And in our experience, we never really worked with a lot of really small companies that didn't even have approved products on the market. They were just never in our focus area. But what happened, again, not planned, is we were doing good work for clients who liked us. They started talking to their industry friends about us, and I started getting unsolicited calls. Can you help us? We're a phase 2 biotech. And I distinctly remember being like, you know, can we? Should we? Is this like, we're trying to stay focused and grow this thing in a controlled way. Can we actually help this company? And we got together again because we're smaller. We can just get together and be like, hey, should we do this? Are we doing this? So we decided we're going to try, right? We may not be really successful, but we think we can do this one. So we do this one, and then more start to come to us, and we're like, oh, geez, like I guess
loads of them.
I guess we do this now, right? So we but we recognized it and went and made sure we had the talent to do it, because we didn't want it. What we were not going to do is say, well, we do this now and we don't do these other things that we've already started to do successfully. We made a conscious decision. All right, we're going to try to also grow here. And so over time, it worked out really well because it gave us some diversity in our revenue and our client profiles. Also, we never intended to sell our company. So none of our thoughts ever went to, oh, that'll look really good at exit. Never, ever, ever, ever.
So, it presumably diluted client concentration. Like I always think smaller growing consulting companies often have a client concentration problem.
Exactly.
And so when you're building, and again, for our audience, you know, quite in a sense, quite similar to the tech industry, you have call it 20 to 50 big dominant companies, big pharmaceutical and mid-sized pharma in the life science space. And then you have this incredible ecosystem of, one or two, man bands up to hundreds or even thousands. And it sounds like you were driving demand from the volume of the market as opposed to the value. But in turn, that was probably giving you a beautiful, diverse set of clients.
It did. And going back to, I'm going to come back to what happened with this market segment, but there was a moment early on where we had this one really, really large client. And I'm talking before we even formed technically, right? We were in pre-formation. And that project, it was too much of our revenue based on how you would normally, want it to be. We knew there was some risk with that, but we saw it coming and we were like, oh, this is the thing that we knew would be a risk. So from that point on, we were like, we're never letting that happen again. Right. So we didn't. And then, this smaller early stage company comes up, and we do more and more, and we start to grow that as part of our portfolio. Well, we were continuing to grow the other things. So then biotech did not have a great year last year. When that went down, we were completely protected because we were not overly committed
invested
there.
in that one segment. Yeah.
Yes. But we got into it by accident, right?
Fantastic. I love it. It's such a good, and I think there's a great learning there. You guys were just good at what you did. And I'm a massive, having done marketing for a long time, I've had clients say, hey, well, what's the best marketing tool, technique, whatever. And I'm like, just be really good at what you do. I was like, if you are really good at what you do, it's no different to a restaurant. It's no different to a phone or a drink or any consumer product. Because if you produce, whether it's a service or a product that is really good, you give a good client experience, people talk about you, people share you with their network. And that is the ultimate marketing tool, I believe.
Yeah. And we knew that, and we made sure we were delivering quality. We made sure that you had an owner involved, right? We could say, you're going to have an owner of our company
involved,
directly overseeing, right? Who else can say that?
That's very cool.
Couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, and I want to move to the transaction. Before I do, how did you staff it as you grew? Because it strikes me as you mentioned quality there. I found, certainly in a scaling consultant businesses is there can be a drop off of quality when the founder or founding team evolves to. It could also be an increase in quality as well, depending on who you hire. But hiring in this sector is difficult at times, and you are very niche, and then that maybe leads us on to what did the business look like before you ended up selling as well, in terms of and you said before you weren't looking to sell. So again, that may be a nice segue into, I can't imagine you were out there shopping the business. I imagine you got a knock on the door, is my guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So
staffing first. So tell me how you staffed it, and then lead us on to, I want to know what this knock on the door looked like.
that is an absolutely crazy story that I probably have joked, I should write a book or a Substack. And
you should. This is the start of it. I'm fascinated in this story. So
my chronology of some of the events, of the way in which things transpired in the most outrageous manner, not expecting any of it. That's a deeper conversation. But when we knew, so we reached a point where we said, there's a lot of demand. We're growing. We can't really deliver without our own dedicated workforce. So we have to hire people. And it was really hard because no one had heard of us. We're risky because, a lot of people don't want to go work for an unproven to them startup. We knew our fundamentals were good. We knew we were profitable. We saw the demand. To us, we're like, why are people not beating down our doors? We're awesome. We're great people to work with. But I remember us talking about this and saying how we need to turn this corner. And the funny thing is, it wasn't long before people started approaching us. And even today, and just before our transaction, I'm approached all the time. People want to work with us, so I'm like, well, it took a little longer than I had hoped, but we had to hire people who had have a combination of some subject matter as well as the consulting skills, the problem solving skills, and they generally don't exist in one person.
Hmm.
So, it's you could say it's buy versus build. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
either take the time to invest in people to teach them the skills they don't already have. Um, and it's very different to teach pharmacovigilance domain knowledge versus problem solving consulting skills.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge then, and it remains a challenge, as you can imagine, right? In a management consulting business, to find the right people. It's such a people centric kind of business. Nonetheless, we made some great hires, and built a really strong team with a strong culture. And I think the culture was
Mhm.
also a tremendous enabler of the continued success.
It strikes me when you've got six founders, it gives you and I said unfair advantage. That's actually not what it's. It gives you a tremendous advantage to ensure that culture is kind of manifested across the organization. Certainly, in my experience, as a sole founder, that became harder when I couldn't be in 10 places at once. And so you had to
Yeah.
then find people that embody the culture. But that's difficult. Like,
Yeah, I
that
don't
is
know how you
hard.
do that. I don't know how I would have ever done that. And again, going back to out the six of us being in lockstep really made a huge difference to sustaining that culture. But another thing actually that we haven't talked about yet, and maybe you were going to ask, is all of this is a global business, right?
Mm.
So not only are the clients all over the world, but the six co-founders, right? Three of us in the US, one in the UK, one in Germany, one in India.
So smart, though. That's
Employees.
like great positioning, though. Fantastic.
And in the end, we had employees in 10 or 11 countries. So all the things they say, oh, just simplify your life, hire in one country. We're like, we can't do that because we're looking for such unique types of people. Every
Yeah.
time we hired someone new, it felt like, oh, well, here's a new country.
Yeah, but I can see how it made you attractive to clients, in a very global market, that you had founders present in the key markets, that are, Europe, Asia, North America, but also then you had teams in these places. Okay, so thank you for that. And let's talk about then the transaction
Yeah,
itself in terms of what, obviously interested in the story of how it came about. And you're only 3.5, 4 years in. So when you started this business, was there always an intention to sell, or was there a sense of let's build this into an amazing kind of lifestyle business for all of us? That's kind of question
yeah.
one, but then maybe lead us into like what happened next.
Sure, sure. So there was never an intention to sell. Like that's one of those principles that we agreed on early on. Now, granted, as people came to that very first kind of meeting of the minds, it's like, are we going to build this and sell it? Should we? Should we not? Like very quickly, we agreed on no because I kind of hate the word lifestyle business. It sounds like you don't take it seriously, but we took it very seriously. But we designed it to stay small, right? To
Yeah,
reach a
yeah.
certain level, stay small, and be something that would be very manageable for us. Um, so we worked in that way, and we had other principles that we all agreed on that would govern a lot of our decision making. And I don't mean like legally binding kinds of
Hmm.
principles. I mean like when we reach an impasse, if we don't know what to do, we're going to go back to that list of things, and it's going to help us decide so that we don't all of a sudden go too big or go too far or jeopardize this nice little thing. Um, so no, there was no intention to sell. We were not looking for buyers. We were doing absolutely nothing to be attractive to a buyer. And you could say one of our mistakes, but a happy mistake, is we invested in marketing and to try to get our names more out there because at first, like I said, we couldn't hire anybody. No one knew who we were. But then when we started to do that and be a little more like professional and polished about it, and then there was a press release that we had a new org structure and I was CEO, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden people start paying attention. But that wasn't why we did it. But then it happened and it was like, oh shit. What have we done?
So did
That's what was going through my mind.
so what happened when this press release came out? Was that then a did you get multiple people knocking on the door at this point, or was there a because the other thing that strikes me is I presumably you were losing business. Sorry, other people were losing business to you as well, right? So you guys were rocking up and were like, "Who the heck are these guys?" Like, like you see it in sectors where, you get these new kids on the block effectively, and you weren't new in from an industry perspective, but you know, if I think about the cumulative effect of having six well networked global founders,
Yeah.
like that gets eyeballs and whatever you call it in terms of on LinkedIn and reputation wise. So I suspect there was chatter in the market about wow, these guys are actually doing some good stuff.
Yeah, I think there started to be more and more recognition. I think there was a lot of recognition for, hey, one of the things we were doing, like I said, was trying to advise on navigating complicated technology investment decisions. It was by no means the only thing we were doing. And in the grand scheme of things, probably a small part of what we were doing. But when you're doing that, the companies that are making the software are like, wait, what? These people have influence? We need to pay
Yeah,
attention
yeah,
to that.
yeah.
We weren't competing at all,
Interesting.
right? But it got attention. And it was also interesting that it's a typical question, who are your competitors? And I would honestly say we don't have one competitor because what we're doing is so unique and diverse. There's no one that we're constantly going up against
Okay.
at all. So that sounds like a bullshit answer.
No, no,
But I'm like, but it's true. Like
yeah.
I'm not making it up.
Well, your competitors were different depending on the which
Exactly what
again there
it
was that blend
was.
a blend.
Yeah, and
Uh,
sometimes there's no competition. Sometimes it's just the relationship. We want you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
do it.
So when this press release goes out, you get a knock on the door saying, "Hey," like, and was it as simple as, "Hey, we want to buy you," or was it like a, "Hey, let's have a strategic partnership," which is often like
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. So without sort of oversharing,
Yeah, yeah.
anything,
Whatever you can share. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, whatever I can share. So before I even get to those bits, I just started getting an influx of emails. Like I represent a pension fund and I want to make an investment.
Well,
Like,
every private equity company, I'm guessing, was interested in, or what you
well,
guys were doing.
somehow, but like all this random stuff coming to my inbox that made no sense, like not even life sciences aligned. I'm like, who are you and why are you contacting me? Is what I get. And they were like pushy. So I was like, this is noise. Meanwhile, we're trying to really grow our business. So I am so focused, and the others, we're all so focused on trying to do it right. I didn't expect this. And now I'm like, oh, what is all this noise? Like, would you people just leave me alone? Right. There was no like, oh, like, look, we're attractive, like not even thinking that. But then there started to be other sort of, discreet reach outs. Hey, would you be willing to talk to or da-da? And I was like, who are you and why are you talking again?
Yeah,
But up close and personal, right? Who are you and why do you want to talk to me? I'd say I'm confused, but I was like, I'm busy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a million other things to do.
Yeah, and that's how we felt. And also at this point, we're 2.5 years in post announcing ourselves to the world. So 3.5 years to the actual exit, two and a
Wow.
half years to people starting to approach. Yeah, but yes, and you mentioned strategic partnerships. Yes, there was very much some of those suggestions of, oh, let's partner, let's do this, let's do that, like let's get into a serious relationship kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay, I'm astonished with the speed of it. Like it is amazing. It's honestly amazing. So you mentioned before you were advising on like complex tech decisions. So what else made you guys attractive? Obviously, we know about you had a really diverse and probably very high quality client base. But obviously you had the growth, the revenue, presumably given that you're a consultant business, the profitability was strong.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, like in private equity world, they call it value drivers. Like what made you
Yeah.
attractive to your eventual acquirer and also like maybe pride, like At what point did you take the meeting and take the call and be like, okay, like there's a lot of noise, but actually, okay, let's have a conversation because at some point you cracked, right?
Yeah, that's got to go into
Did
the
they
book,
just put a
the book or
number?
the Substack.
Did they give you a big number and you're like, okay, I'm gonna have a conversation?
No, no, it was it wasn't even like that. But I think going back to what made us attractive, I think all of the fundamentals were there. Like we had the different, you can call it revenue streams. We were doing different things. So it wasn't only tech decisions. We were also helping clients to be ready for inspections, health authority inspections. We were helping them clean up after inspections, highly skilled advisory work leading into execution kind of work that it's hard to find good people who can help you with that.
Yeah.
We were working with the small early stage companies, which which was very separate kind of service. We were doing embedded solutions, staff augmentation, and what we were able to articulate is these different parts of the business sort of they can feed off each other quite nicely. It gave us the diversity of revenue that we wanted, and we were I think it just what the numbers and the data screamed is this is healthy and this is very robust, right? I would say that came through.
So when did you take the call?
When did I take the call? I think there
And did
was
you just take one call back? And again, this might be two. Don't if you can't share, but like
yeah.
I'd be shocked if there was not more than one interested party when that conversation happened. But it's more. It's not necessarily trying to like get into the gory detail of your transaction. It's probably more like how do founders deal with this and like an almost filter between like what's genuine and what's of like real interest. Like what was your filter for having those conversations?
So one of them was it really just came down to it's no skin off my back to take an hour meeting at this point, right? I might learn something, and we agreed like I have an obligation, right, to our shareholders that if someone wants to have this conversation, and unless we think it's going to cause damage to have the conversation, like go find out, right? Go have a chat. And that was done, in a way that it was again no skin off my back. I was already in the right place, physically to take that meeting without breaking a sweat. So I did it, right, and that's how one of them went, and another was you keep pestering me, so I guess I'll hear what you have to say.
Well done to these persistent folks that managed to wear you. And okay, so before we go into like the transaction itself, were you all aligned? So at some point, there's a bid, I presume. At some point, someone says, hey, like we've had multiple conversations and this is what we are willing to pay for the business. I'm just interested, again, like as a sole founder, like I had a shareholder that was involved at the time. She's actually staying in my house right now, which is hilarious. She's upstairs staying with her husband at the minute, which is fun. But and it was someone that had been through this process before. So actually for me, but ultimately it was my decision because I owned the majority of the business. But where were you guys in this? You'd obviously been very aligned up to this point. Like, was there any conflict that you were able to share in terms of like, how did you, and I'm less bothered about the conflict. I'm more bothered about like, how did you resolve that? Or was it like, guys, like, this is ridiculous. We can't say no. Like, where on that spectrum?
I think it was, it was a lot of work, a lot of sort of emotional work to hold us together. And we all bore the burden of that. But I would say radical transparency, right? At every step, it was like, all right, I talked to so-and-so. I had the meeting that I told you I was going to have. This is what we talked about. This is kind of, what happens next. And we will all convene. And, it was very much like hearing hearing what are your concerns about this, hearing what you want out of this, should it go forward, and making sure that everyone's voice was heard. Because at the end of the day, it's not impossible to keep 6 co-founders aligned through a transaction, but it's actually really rare.
Yeah.
Usually I was told by my advisor, like most of these structures absolutely fall apart and end in
Mm.
dispute. And I was like,
Great,
so
great.
I didn't have that on. In addition to everything else, like trying to keep the business on its correct course, potentially navigate a transaction, um, and also like life is happening, like
Of
personal
course, yeah.
life, like, and nothing yields to anything ever. I was like, oh my god, this whole thing could blow up. Like I can't let that happen. So it was a very concerted effort, I would say, to make sure all the co-founders' voice was heard, concerns dealt with, right? However it made sense. That human element, right? Because for some people, it's like it's actually not about money, right?
Mm. Well, that's it. It's not, and that's the interesting thing. I mean, I'm aware of a situation that I advised someone on recently who was one of three co-founders, and they had an approach, and the three founders wanted three completely different things, and actually, unsurprisingly, the transaction didn't happen because the acquirer was
Yep.
like, guys, like you're all, there's no, I think an acquirer can deal with like, founder one saying, hey, like this is not for me, I'm happy to cash out, and founder two saying, hey, I want to go lead this business, but with six, I can imagine it's incredibly complex. And did you have advisors and stuff like that? Because obviously, it's
Yep.
not like you took as far as I'm aware, you didn't like run a process and take the business to market in a more traditional sense. So
Not
you,
at all.
which, yeah, so yeah, and again, like I'm guessing none of you guys had done this. You're not sold a
Correct.
business, so it's a
Correct.
lot. Like I think selling a business, I often say to people, even if you don't sell, like you learn a
Yep.
ridiculous amount through a process like this. It's like a mini MBA. It's phenomenal to
Yep.
like what you learn and how to. You said something really interesting before, and I wrote it down. Like the health of a business, like understanding what makes a healthy business.
Yep.
Like, and some people just know it intuitively, but actually, like when you look at it through the lens of a rational investor or acquirer, like you really start to understand like what makes a good business, and it kind of makes sense. Like everything, makes sense. And so you guys done that. So what was you mentioned obviously that it was 2.5 years before the kind of the press release and these conversations started, and then it took another year or so to obviously close. And what was that going through the process? Like we hear all the time, like diligence is horrific, and I can't imagine you were prepared for this.
Nope.
Like I can't imagine like like an advisor's there to like, hey, let's get your
Yeah.
books in order, let's have everything in the data room, all that kind of stuff. Like it's
Correct.
not like you had all that.
Yeah. No, nothing. I mean, nothing was prepared for anything. And we were very transparent about that because we didn't plan to sell it. So why would we have all these things? So even before some of those, informal, like, okay, fine, I'll meet you, I'll talk to you, it was like, am I supposed to like have a slide deck ready? Like that. That's what it was like. But we did have an advisor. There was a few different types of advisors involved. Even from our earliest formation, we had an advisor who had been there, done that, right, with a different
Okay.
kind of company, but who knew all of us, and he was absolutely instrumental in, just telling us what we needed to hear when we needed to hear it, with no sugarcoating, right? And he would often say, I can't tell you what will happen, but I can tell you what did happen when we were in this situation, which is kind of
Situation.
like your situation. And that was invaluable at every step. He was right there in the background as we were going through the you could say the courtship and the negotiation and the whole transaction. Never got involved front facing at all. Just kind of there for me and the others. And then of course we had tax advisory. We had like you have to have that, but we did not have, to your point, like a banker, right? So like I was the banker,
Do you have any
which is
regrets?
interesting because I was like, I guess I'll figure out how to do
I could
this.
have, yeah. Do you have any regrets reflecting back on that? Like, and or did I mean? It sounds like you were such a smart founding team. You had some good advisors around you, but like, you know, I've hugely valued having advisors, but at the same time, I've had people that have sold, like friends that have sold businesses that have just did it themselves and were
Yep.
incredibly successful. And actually, sometimes advisors can add a layer of complexity as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have time. I never had time to stop and think about a lot of things as we're going through it. Because as you know, right, you rightly said, it's an intense process. So there's a lot of things that I had to do my post close processing in my brain of like, what even just happened?
Well, that's it. That leads me nicely on to so for our audience, tell us who the inquiry, and obviously it's public, the acquiring business was, and and what it like. Why did they buy? Like for
Sure.
them, buying you meant what?
Yeah, sure. So we were acquired by ELIQUENT Life Sciences, which is a portfolio company of GHO Capital. They wanted to be in the pharmacovigilance space, right? That was a capability that they wanted. And again, I go back to buy versus build. So they saw a turnkey, globally integrated PV consulting company that could just fill that vertical, right? Because the company already had quality and compliance and regulatory, and this was the third piece that they wanted. So, I would say when we met them and they described, what they were looking for and why they were interested in us, we were like, that
Makes
actually makes
sense.
sense, as opposed to other things we've been approached about that make no sense. So we can talk.
And when the transaction happened, and this moves, and we're moving to kind of transition now because we've got about 10 minutes left or so, and I
Sure.
don't want to miss this part because I always think this is the most interesting, particularly when there's six founders. So like I'm desperate to know how, and again, like what you're able to share is fine. Like
Sure.
what, like, we interview people, or I interview people at like, I interviewed one guy. He stayed with the acquirer for 9 years, acquiring companies on their behalf. Amazing, but also an anomaly. I would say the majority really, really struggle in that kind of, especially if it's like people like me that are like one-time founders, and they're like, well, "I've got a boss. I'm in a structure. What the hell is this?" So, but you guys had obviously come from bigger organizations. It wasn't like you'd all been on this entrepreneurial for 20 years, so you knew the like. And I said politics is probably not. You knew like what comes with working in a larger organization. So when you got on the other side of the fence, like, and congratulations, I should just stop
Thank
there.
you.
This, but like, what an incredible achievement to pull that off in just like 4 years as a team. And I often quote this, they say exiting a business is often harder than starting a business, which is quite a good. But obviously, for you guys, it wasn't necessarily walking away on day one. So what happened? So when the day after the transaction, the months and I think it's years now, or a year or so since then, like how did any of the co-founders leave the business immediately, or actually are you all still
100, yeah,
there?
100% retention going on.
Wow,
15, all the employees as well. Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
how long since the transaction now?
It closed March 31st last year, so we're
Okay,
going on 1 year
yeah.
and a couple months. Yep.
Amazing. So everyone's still there. And again, if you're able to share, I don't know, like, is this like the nature of the transaction? Was it like here's some cash up front and an earn out, or is it linked to them exiting with GHO one day? Again, you might not be able to share, but it's just interesting to
I probably
understand.
shouldn't share. I don't
Okay.
think there's anything like
Public.
controversial in the answer, but I probably shouldn't share.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. Okay. And then so how's it been on the other side? Like, so obviously when we met a couple of months ago, and actually it's worth saying we were connected through GHO and Sabina, who's an amazing person and a good friend of mine who works there, and they're a phenomenal private equity company. Like, I'm a big fan of, they've acquired a lot of the businesses that I've known in the kind of life science space, and so. But how's it been? Because you've almost got two elements, as like you're in a larger organization, but you're also now in a private equity backed organization, which
Yes.
brings like a different set of
Totally
expectations. So
different. Yeah.
how have you found, and obviously this is from your perspective, I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of the other co-founders. How's the journey been in the transition for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been good. I mean, and it's a process to get through that integration, and I've been describing it as like further transformation of us, because even if everything we've been doing is good and we should keep doing it, to your point, doing it in a private equity backed organization, you have to not do it differently. You have to think differently or measure differently. And those are not, while you can get everyone onto the HR systems and, get the financial stuff integrated quickly, like that, that's a very small part of it, right?
Yeah.
The hard part, I would say, is, um, it is a multi-step, multi-month, maybe even like multi-year transformation so that it can be continue to be successful in a new environment with different measures of success. And again, without that, I don't even think this is an overshare, but because it's no secret, right? Utilization matters. Like there's different metrics. Like we didn't have to measure a lot of different things to know we were successful before. It was profitability, reputation.
That's it. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
I'm
really
with
was
you.
that simple.
I'm with you. But like, what? We're measuring what? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like there's
But it makes
lot more.
sense. So like,
A lot of things get measured, and sometimes those things, this is not a shock, can be can compete with each other.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it makes it it's a lot more, I don't want to say sophisticated, it's just much more complex. So you can't just keep doing what you were doing. As much as everybody loves what we're doing, everybody liked us, that's why they wanted us there. And that transformation takes time.
Yeah.
So but we're on it.
And how have you found like the loss of? And I said loss of influence. That's not like, obviously you are very influential within your bit of the business, but that's one of three bits of the business at Eloquent. And so I'm interested in understanding, like, has it been easy for you just to get on with it, or has it been weird? Because you've been running, you were the CEO of running the business day to day. Is it odd now to kind of go back to doing a division of something bigger?
Not really. And I reminded people at the time, like I had been a practice leader in a 500-person company before. So it's not like I had never done that,
Done this, yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah, yeah.
fine. And people use oh, but it's your baby. Can you give up control of your baby? And I was like, I can give up control, right? That's not really, that was never really a question. Maybe I lack certain emotional, something or other. But no, I mean, it's, I part of the one of the biggest reasons that this was attractive is because that nice fit where it's like, oh, if we can be flanked with world class regulatory, world class quality and compliance, that's
Mm.
additive, right? That's not a distraction. So are they different? Yes. Do they get attention? Yeah, but we're successful by working together. So I have no issue, right? And at any point in time, if another practice area has needs, by all means let them be successful, help them, come around, help me when I need it. But by investing in all of it, it makes the whole thing stronger. So I have no issue with it. And for those who aren't in life sciences, right, at the end of the day, pharmacovigilance is typically a smaller slice of companies' spending.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
spend more in other areas, so that's okay, right? So we have to go where the market is, and as long as our team continues to transform and maintain its strength and its uniqueness, then we're all good.
I wanted to ask you about your motivation, and I don't mean that in terms of like, hey, are you motivated to go to work today? Like, I don't mean that. Like, you. It strikes me that you've had this unbelievable, like, unbelievably successful business in such a short space of time, right? And if I was in your shoes, I'd be like, God, I want to do that again. Now, so like, or not, right? Like, depending
Yeah,
on the liquidity, and you're like, actually, I don't really need to work ever again, and that's a different conversation. But like, and this is not a now, because obviously I understand the complexity of where you're at now. But like, let's fast forward like 10 years, right? Let's fast forward 10 years. Like, do you envisage a time where you go again, not necessarily the same business, or like, but you've had a taste, and you've had like,
yeah,
it's like having like the best chocolate in the world, or the best chocolate. You're like, you've done it so well, and you're like, this. It could be ego. It could be just like, actually, I want to go again. Whatever. Like, is that fire burning in you?
yeah. The answer is quite nuanced. So there's definitely points in time and days where I say, "Good God, I would never do that again," because it was just it took so much out of me. And it's when you've had such an amazing go with all those stars aligned, like why even chance it, right? Because it may
Mm,
not be as good. That has factored in. Um, but I also learned about myself as I did my post close mental processing and unpacking of what the hell just happened. Um, there's moments in the process where you think, not only do I not want to build another company, like I want to stop doing everything tomorrow because I just need a break. Like there's
break. Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
moments. But what I learned about myself as the dust started to settle is that I have plenty more fuel to keep going. And even though I may have had moments in time where I thought, I'm just retiring tomorrow because I'm done.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
I wouldn't be happy or fulfilled doing that, which surprised me about myself. But I learned a lot about myself after I was able to unpack what the hell just happened over the past year. And what I learned is I'm not done. Don't know that I want to build another company from
yeah,
scratch.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But not done. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I have a similar view in that, like, I certainly couldn't do nothing. I mean, anyone who follows me on LinkedIn, like, I do lots of random stuff now, right? And it's like, it's stuff that keeps me fulfilled, including this podcast. Like, meeting amazing people like you as part of, it's the result of lots of soul searching, right? Of like how to, like, what to do next, and like, where do I get energy from? It's meeting other founders, it's hearing their stories and sharing that with the world. Like, but that took, and I'm still involved in the businesses I'm involved, like that I founded, but not to the same extent. And so that's been a real journey. And to your point, like, I couldn't go and sit on like, I'd get bored to death sitting on a beach for like 2 days, never mind 3 months. So and I didn't ask, and like, if you don't mind, I was like, do you have kids or family or anything like that
Sure.
type of thing?
Yep. Yep. I have a husband who is, well, he used to work full time in the emergency room. Doesn't do that anymore, uh, but still works in the medical field, and a nearly 15-year-old daughter. So yeah, we had a cockapoo. She passed away
Oh,
in
I'm
the
sorry to
middle
hear.
of all of this, but she was a part of our family and a part of the story, right? She was there for a lot of it.
What a great example you are for your daughter. I have to say, like, what an awesome example you are for your daughter. And has it changed? I often, ask, when a big transaction happens and, a founder has had a successful exit. I mean, in your eyes, it is an exit and it's a sale, albeit you're now you're back in a day job. And, what has it changed family life at all? Has it impacted you in a different way? How do you think about parenting now with respect to, in a 50, it's quite an impressionable age, right? And how, especially as 15, I've got a 13-year-old boy, he's, it's impressionable enough, but a 15-year-old girl, like, like, how flashy are we or not? Like, you don't strike me
Yeah.
as a flashy person by any
Mhm.
stretch of the imagination,
Yeah.
but like, how has it evolved or occupied your mind in thinking about things like that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So starting with my daughter, she hears everything, right? And I didn't realize how much she was absorbing and understanding. And there were a couple of funny moments where I would make a comment about something, and my husband would say, "Wait, what? Like, what did you just say?" And my daughter's like, "What she means is," she would like nail it. She would be on my case. She would overhear me having conversations with people I was trying to hire. And she even said to me once on a car ride, "By the way, did you ever land so and so?" And she named the person who I wanted to hire. And I was like, Jesus Christ, you're 12 years old and you're asking me this. Yeah. So she learned a lot. And the funny thing about that is, like, this is just her normal, right? To see a mom be like this, whatever this was, she saw it, and that's normal. And that's fascinating to me because it's actually not that common.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, it's
hopefully
not.
she turns out like, hopefully she takes the good from it, and doesn't necessarily, I don't know, go off in some bad direction. And my husband, I mentioned that he's a physician, like, case in point, not an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
not someone who's ever been up close with this himself. So for him, he's also looking at it saying, the hell is going on over there? Right? Like that, I would hear that every so often. And it's not like I could say, oh no, this is just how it was always meant to be. And this is what we planned, or this is how these things go. I'm like,
that's awesome. So my wife's a physician as well, so she's an
okay.
anesthesiologist, and she worked post transaction and did for a few years, and now she's like, I'm gonna take a bit of time off, and she took it, and that was like 2 years ago. And I'm like, baby, like, are you gonna go back to work? Like, ever? Like, yeah, we'll see, because I mean, being a doctor in a like hospital based doctor is like the hardest job. It is, and it takes, it has so much impact on the family when you have it, especially as an ER doctor, right? You've got shift work to do, you're on call, all that type of stuff. Like, it's incredibly draining, let alone you're also dealing with people's lives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like if there is an option to, parachute out for whether it's for 6 months or forever,
Yeah.
like
Well, he
you
doesn't do it
can't blame.
anymore, thankfully.
Well, maybe your husband should speak to our wife, but maybe not, because I wanted to go back at some point, because I always think, well, it's a profession that adds so much value to the world, but
Yeah.
it is a very hard profession, isn't it?
It's very intense, and I think there were moments in time where one of my team even said to me something like, "If your husband's an ER doctor and you are the way I know you are, right, which is like can be very intense. I can't imagine what it's like living in your house." And I was like, "It's just normal for us, but yeah, I mean, it's like it could be
We
intense."
have 3 boys, and I remember, and we always have visitors here in wherever we've lived. And someone came last year, and the kids left to go to school, and they were like, "It's like living in a tornado in your house." And I was like, "That's actually a great way to, it's just like noise and energy and laughter and screaming." And I'm like, "That's just, yeah, the way it is." Well, look, Jamie, honestly, like I knew we'd go over time. I said to you before we even started today that was going to happen, but I'm so glad we did,
Okay.
because like, what an amazing story.
Thank you.
And like, thank you for being so, kind and sharing your insights. Like I've been making a ton of notes as we've been talking, because I just think there's so much to unpack there for founders actually on their journey or well into their journey. I think like some of the lessons, like you're so like humble about like how you built a good business, and there's probably an element like they're often you're in the right place at the right time and all that kind of stuff, but like you did some things so well that no doubt were the foundation for the growth that you achieved, and then ultimately the transaction. And obviously you're going through that transition, and you kind of come out the other side. You seem in a good place, and who knows what the future holds, right? But whatever you do, I'm sure you will continue to be super successful in whatever you do next as well.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.